Welcome to PlanetRoq, the hottest show in the cosmos, y'all. I'm Raquel Herring, your guide on this wild ride called life. Join us every Thursday at 12 noon Eastern Time on envision-radio.com for powerful stories and insights that delve into relationships and personal growth. Once again, tune in on envision-radio.com and catch our replays on YouTube every Saturday. And your Thursdays just got better. You can also catch me tonight every weeknight at 7:30 p.m. live on Point of View. Tune in on Comcast Xfinity Channel 1623 or on your social media at Afro TV. Connect with me on social media at RaquelHerring.com and at PlanetRoqPodcast.com. That's PlanetRoq Podcast.com. Let's elevate your life one episode at a time right here on PlanetRoq. Joshua and Stephanie are our guests for today. And before we dive into the dynamics of ministry, I want to pause and honor their incredible courage, the courage they are exhibiting right now to share what's been on their hearts. They have been carrying a personal story of hurt, specifically the kind of abuse and manipulation that's, happening in church. They're passionate about fighting this church hurt and get to the healing. And we're determined with them. And they're not going to carry this into the new year. So I'm so grateful that they decided to share their story with me right here on PlanetRoq. This is a heavy burden, and I want to give them space right here on PlanetRoq to get it off their hearts. When you're ready, whoever wants to take the wheel first, you go head on. I know Jesus, take the wheel, right? But you guys decide who's going to start first. You are here to use your story to help others to know that they are not alone. But I would like to welcome to PlanetRoq, Stephanie and Joshua Roussel. Welcome.
Thank you so much.
I'm going to go with chivalry and let ladies go first. So.
Okay. Thank you. Chivalry's not dead, y'all.
Thank you so much for having us. I am Stephanie Roussel. This is my amazing partner, husband, Joshua Roussel.
Amen. Welcome to PlanetRoq. I'm so happy to have you all here, that you all chose this platform to share your story.
Well, we appreciate it.
Yeah,
wholeheartedly, for sure.
Thank you. And y'all said we are not going into the new year with this. No, we are not. We're going to unleash it. I heard that.
We're leaving this 5-year baggage behind.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. 5 years. Y'all hear that?
Yeah.
My goodness. Let's get in it. Whoever wants to go first, let's start. Introduce yourselves first.
All right.
Well, you want us to start on how we met? Because it kind of intertwines with
let's give them a little backstory.
Yeah, give us the backstory. Just start from the beginning.
I'll do a quick little. I was in, I had left Massachusetts, moved to Nashville, Tennessee, went through some stuff there, was rededicating my life back to God. I was in a mess back home from where I'm from in Massachusetts. And I knew him getting me out of that situation, it would put me back on the path of faith. And I didn't grow up in the church. I found God at 19, 20 years old. So it was kind of battling with, the person I was before I met God in my 20s. So I ended up in Nashville, was homeless there for about 6 to 7 months. Wow. And then God just changed some things around. And then I bought my first house there. And then after like 2-3 months of owning my house, God told me to sell the house and move. And I didn't know where I was moving to. Wow. Everybody around me is like, you just came from this situation. You just got on your feet. And I said, well, I got to follow what the Lord is telling me to do. Mm-hmm. And if that means going to another place and going through exactly what I just went through, I'm willing to do that.
Amen.
Because my yes means that much to God, because he saved my life.
Yeah.
He saved me from, darkness. He pulled me out of the darkness and he allowed me to see his marvelous light. So fast forward to that, I had like 6 options of where I was going to go, and Florida was not one of them. And so, like until the very last moment, Florida just popped on my radar. Somebody I went to middle school with, he was moving back down to Florida, and that's how we roommated for a little bit. And I found the church on Instagram, and I'll leave it there because then you can intertwine.
Okay.
You can intertwine your story.
So, we'll start off at saying that, there really is beauty for ashes, right? Because
Amen.
at the end of the day, all of this still brought us together. So while he is in Tennessee,
yeah.
I am from Florida, but I was living in California. My oldest, yes.
I lived there too.
Oh, nice. What part?
I lived in San Fernando Valley mostly. I was on Fairfax and 3rd for a while.
Okay.
Yep.
Nice.
My mom lived in Sherman Oaks for a long time.
Oh, look at that. Oh my God.
I was born in the Mojave Desert.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Look at the Cali people. What?
Look at the connection. What?
We just found that out.
I love it. But yeah, I went to California. I was a single mom at the time. My oldest is now 19. And in the career that I had, I was like capped out in Florida. So I was like, I need to make more money. I was also just trying to get away from her dad. So I went out there for some time. And I was going through child support court stuff, all kind of stuff for like 2 years. So I was traveling back and forth because my daughter was with my mom. So, on that journey, it was my singlehood journey, which I don't regret. I went for some reasons, but then the Lord turned it around. It was a healing place for me. I, had to heal from just things that I didn't know I had to heal from, right? Looking for love in the wrong places because I didn't have my father growing up. So fast forward, I'm thinking everything's going to work out in my favor with, the court and everything like that. I was like, I got this in the bag. I'm moving to California. I'm getting my daughter. Well, unbeknownst to me, surprise, we go to court and it did not work in my favor. So I literally had like 2 weeks to move back to Florida. Yes, which I was devastated because I was done with Florida. Yeah. And all in the journey of, staying celibate and seeking the Lord, trying to do things his way instead of my way. And I came back, and the church that I had been a part of. So actually a little more of a backstory. I wasn't raised in the church. I was raised Catholic with mixture. I got saved at 15, and I kind of came up in the Spanish Pentecostal church. So after some time, that's where I learned leadership, sanctification, all that stuff. Then I start going to the particular church, and I loved it. It was like, wow to me. So anyway, they were, it was like my family. I felt to an extent that they were more of my family than my own family. So I came back from California. I started going back to the church. They're in a different building now. And shortly after, I'm not working because I'm, devastated. I don't know what I'm doing with my life. And I go to early morning prayer at 6:30 in the morning, and I see this guy, and he was a new face to me. And I was like, something was different. I'm like, okay, that's weird to see someone his young age at church, right? That early in the morning. So I said, either he's serious about the Lord or he's desperate and needs help.
A little bit of both.
It was a little bit of both.
A little bit of both.
Yes. So fast forward, sparing all the amazing details. It was a Godspeed situation, and we realized that we were meant to be. And we did everything backwards. We booked the venue and everything. The ring came later, and it was like within a matter of 3 months or so.
Wow.
So yes.
Yeah, that was fast.
Yes. And we're going on 9 years together, 10 married.
No, next year we'll make 10 years married, 11 years together.
He keeps me in line.
Wow. We're going to have to bring you all on about that.
Oh, yeah. That's a whole, yes.
Yeah, that was.
Listen, single ladies, I got you. I got some stories. I can help you out. But, so as everything was intertwining so fast, I was already in leadership, and he's a leader by nature.
Yeah, it started with me. I have a huge heart for the homeless since my experience. Even before I went through what I went through, when I first got saved back home in Massachusetts, I was, you get that fresh zeal, that fire when you you've missed out on this your whole life, and then all of a sudden God touches you, and you're just like, you got that. You just want to tell everybody about Jesus. I was on that, but I had no lick of word in me. I just had the zeal, but I didn't have the knowledge. I didn't have the understanding. So I'm going out to where the prostitutes and the homeless are, and they know more word than me. But I'm out there, and I'm there asking me questions, and I'm like looking at somebody else to try to. So I've always had that passion. So fast forward, when I get here, I wasn't working either. When I left Nashville, I came here again without a job. Even though I've been a truck driver since 2008, I didn't want to transfer from the company I was at in Tennessee to here. I wanted a fresh start with something else. So for I think like a month and a half or so, I wasn't working. So that's when I was like, if I'm not doing anything, I might as well find a church, get involved, you know what I mean? And just do that. I have some savings a little bit, so I'll be all right until I find something. I'm a truck driver. I know I can get a job.
Yeah.
And at that time, God had touched my heart to start ministering to the homeless here in Orlando. And that's what I was doing. So like we kind of bumped paths because she heard that I was bringing some of the homeless people to church. And she wanted to go, and that's how we really got connected. Was she came with me one day and we went to the homeless together, and it was funny. As we were praying underneath this overpass, and there's just drunks and just chaos around, but God's peace was in the midst. I didn't say her, but I asked if she would pray. And we started praying, and we're holding hands. There's like 2 or 3 homeless people, and it's us, and we're just there. And my whole thing was I wasn't just dropping off food and leaving. Like I was spending hours. I was going to court with these homeless people because they were fighting cases from panhandling and getting arrested. So like I was dedicating my time to like build like Jesus does, how he builds relationship with us. He takes his time to understand who we are. So that's what I was doing. I wasn't just, here's some food and I'm out. I was sitting under there for hours. I was really getting to know them. And she came and she wanted to come. And so when she was praying, I was like, God, I want a woman like that. Like, I didn't say I wanted her. I was like, I need a woman like that in my life that's willing to come into the trenches with me, is not afraid, is not going to be like turning her nose because they smell or this, and their circumstances, not where our circumstances are. But at any given moment, any of us could be where they're at.
Right.
Life can throw you a curveball in a quick minute, and you could lose your house, you could lose your job, you could end up so quickly in that predicament that they're in. So it was good that when I seen that, when I was like, man, she's not afraid, and like the connection just kind of built from there. But yeah, she was in leadership, and then I started getting onto like the gatekeepers, which was like kind of like security, I guess, in a way. And then I started opening up the church for prayer. Like I started like it slowly, and then for me, it was so many people there. I think it was like at given time 400 to 600 people membership, like 2 services. So it's split between there, but it was such a lack for leadership. Like there's so many people, but not a lot of people wanted to step up into the role to do things. So like the sound, sometimes there'd be nobody that would run sound. Sometimes nobody would run the camera. So I just started filling in. So I learned the cameras, I learned the soundboard, so like when the pastor would get there, like everything, if no one else was there, it would already be set up. I would have the sound set up, I'd have the mics checked, and as best as I could do. I'm not a soundboard guy, but
but you were there, you were doing it, you're putting it.
Yeah, I started developing into that and being dedicated and being, and for a long time I was double service. I was opening up the church and I was closing the church. Like I would be there, and that was every Sunday for years. Just, you wear yourself thin after a while. You just get burnt because you feel bad if you say no. Like that's part of the manipulation though. They kind of use that against, like you're not going to be here. Like you're not going to be here, and you kind of feel bad. And it's like, you deserve some days off. You deserve to, spend time with your family. And you know what I mean? God ain't going to be mad at me because I missed a Sunday. Like, what am I doing throughout the week with my relationship with God? Not just on Sunday. Like I should be seeking God's face every day that ends with Y, not just the. So it started developing into that. The leadership started to grow into that. Became the armor bearer eventually, and then am I missing anything?
We
became the young adults leaders.
Yeah.
Okay.
They put us over
Yeah.
the young adults. Before we even married, we were engaged. And then they wanted us to be the leaders for the young adults. And they kind of incorporated that with us getting married, and they thought it'd be a good fit. And we had a great time. Like, even though like we went through such a traumatic thing, there was still some positive things that we are able to take from the experience. There were still some great people that we met along the way. I do believe God moved in certain, but I think God was capped because of the leadership was so corrupt at the top that there was only so much God could do. Just like Jesus going back to his hometown, he wished he could have did more, but he couldn't because of how they looked at him, or they were too built on the traditions in the laws. We got to uphold the law instead of not understanding that the Savior is sitting right in front of them, and that I'm here to fulfill the law, but I'm also here to do so much more. And I believe, this church could have catapulted and had great things happen, but because the leadership didn't honor what the responsibility God had placed on that part of the body, whatever part of the body we were, because every church plays a different role of what the function is. Right. I think that's where like we just kept hitting ceilings on things, and then you don't understand why things aren't happening, or why marriages are starting to fall apart in the place. And I don't want to get too far ahead, but so.
I like this because it's kind of like and then we gotta rewind it.
Right.
So I'll rewind majorly. So gosh, I think I started when I was a single mom. I started going there, I want to say maybe like 2010, around there.
Okay.
And at that time, like I said, I came up in the Pentecostal church, but I was still naive to a lot of things. I was always a worshiper. So what drew me to that church initially was the worship. Yes. It was like, oh my gosh, this is like another level, So I remember just getting involved and thinking back, I'm like, where did the door open? So I remember all of a sudden I started getting phone calls from, so to not say the pastor, I'm going to refer to him as the man, and I'll refer to his wife as the woman. Okay.
Okay.
So I remember that the man started calling me, and I was like, oh, wow. Cause I never gave my phone number.
Uh-oh.
And I'll also refrain from names, right? But I'll talk about positions and things like that. But I don't recall ever providing my phone number. Now, granted, right? If my phone number is in the directory, then obviously. So, at first I'm like, oh, wow. Like the pastor called me. I'm like, I was impressed, right? Because you're like, that doesn't usually happen. Right. But then, and it was kind of like asking questions. Where'd you come from? This and that. I'm like, okay, But then it continued on. And I was like, okay, this is different, because coming up in the Pentecostal church, they teach you that that's kind of a boundary that you don't cross, right? So it should be a female reaching out to you, or it should, if anything, it should be the pastor and the pastor's wife reaching out to you together. So, but then you're like, well, it's the pastor. What am I gonna do? Tell you not to call me? I was nowhere near as bold back then as I am now. So
we learn to get bold as we go on, that's for sure.
Yes.
What was that so far? The Bold and the Beautiful?
Right.
So the calls kept happening. Mind you, and I'm the only one serving the Lord in my family. So it's not like I can run this by my mom and she would be like, hey, that's not right. I had nobody.
Yeah, you're out there alone. Yeah.
Yes. Literally Holy Spirit. And there's a check in there. There's like, this doesn't feel right. So he would call me, and then it just kept becoming more often and asking questions. And then it was like the MLM scams, right? Like, oh, I think you would be great, for this, I have this business. I've done MLMs in the past, so I knew exactly what it was.
Me too. Yeah.
But you're you're new to this place, so you're like, man, you almost want to please, right? Like, oh man, my pastor's asking me to do this, like, So it was happening more, and it would get like later in the day. And I'm just like, in my head, I'm like, does his wife know that he's calling me? And is she okay with it?
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm like, well, I want to assume that she knows, and she has to be okay with it if he's doing this, because he's a pastor. A pastor wouldn't do this. Right. I mean, I'm green. I didn't even know what church hurt. Well, I didn't know green, like prime vulnerability. So in that stage, I was still, learning to know who I was in the Lord, especially outside of the Pentecostal realm. And there was some rebellion there, right? I was working out, getting, fit, all that stuff. So I posted a picture of myself on Instagram, and I had some pretty short shorts on. That normally, like, I knew better than that, especially in the Pentecostal church, I would have been in discipline. So he calls me one day. And he's like, Steph, that picture. And I was like, oh, shoot, I'm going to get in trouble. Yeah. I'm going to get in trouble. I'm like, I got to take the picture down. He's going to tell me that that's inappropriate, whatever. Yeah. To my shock, he says, Steph, those legs, my God. And I was like, what? I was in shock. I didn't know what to do. Yeah. That had never, ever happened to me before. I mean, when I explain like blank, you're just like in shock. Like that was probably my first time ever experiencing a state of shock like that. Wow. So I'm like, what do I say? What do I do? Because first and foremost, I'm nowhere near even attracted to you. Let's get that right. Mm-hmm. I'm a single mom. I'm still in my mid-20s. I'm like, what do I do with this?
Yeah. And he's the pastor, and he's married.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he goes to me, because he had this like chuckling laugh, like, he goes, hey, if you say anything to anyone, I'll deny it. So I'm going to take you for your word. Right. Yeah, you're right. You're going to deny it. And they're going to take your side, because I just got here the other day. You're the pastor. They don't know me from Adam. And I can only imagine all the types of titles I would get. Right. So I brought it before the Lord. I prayed again. I'm naive at that point. I don't necessarily know. My discernment has always been strong, but I didn't necessarily know how to hear from the Lord. I couldn't tell my mom, because I'm trying to lead my mom to Jesus. If I share this with her, this is going to turn her off to the Lord, and to church. So I'm holding this into myself, because that's all I can do. And, unfortunately, because of how I was raised, it's kind of like there's this saying like, well, a man's going to be a man. So it's not excusable, but it almost makes it like passive, like, well, a man's going to be a man, whatever, keep it moving.
Right. And it's just like kind of written off. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So I said to myself, okay, first of all, I almost had this righteous indignation in me, because I was like, I love this worship team too much. I am not letting this man get in between this. However, it should have been the red flag. It was the red flag that I should have ran for my life. And the crazy thing is, as we get further down, that was a name of a series he did of preachings called Run for Your Life. And as we later on put all the pieces together, I'm like, I should have ran for my life.
A lot of his sermons were telling on himself, or giving us hints to, if they were his sermons, we could get to that too.
So what I did basically was, I said, well, you know what? I'm going to forgive. Right. If he does it again, then I'm out. Mm-hmm. But if he doesn't do it again, then, hey, we'll let bygones be bygones, and we'll just, keep it moving. Right. So he didn't do it again. I think that it was a test to see where I was, right? Because unfortunately, when that spirit is at work, it knows vulnerability, and it knows how far it can get with you. So it almost knew like, okay, I can't push past this with her. So I stayed and I just, let it be, went on like, hey, how you doing? Whatever. And he still would call. He never made a pass again, but he would still call with the business stuff. I don't even know how far from that time I finally got to even talk to his wife, because that's another story. So fast forward to us meeting, right? All this journey and everything like that. I'm growing in the church. I was in leadership at that time. I was over the singles ministry, so to speak.
Okay.
But even then, there were things that just, you look back and you're like, man, there were people that were so involved. I mean, when I tell you people were so involved, giving of their time, sacrificing their Saturdays.
Yep.
And all of a sudden, they're not there anymore. And you're like, okay, what happened to so-and-so?
Right.
But you're just like, okay, well, you just let it be. Now, I know every church is different. Where I came from, again, the Pentecostal church, if there was a prominent leader or someone who was prominent, you would bless them on their way. You would present them before the church and say, hey, so-and-so is leaving us, whatever.
Right.
That didn't happen. It would just be that people would disappear. You'd never see them again, and you don't know why. And you just keep it moving. And you almost, because the manipulation is so in your ear, you almost start looking at the people who left a certain way. Like if they were the problem versus the pastors being the problem.
Of course, because why? You thinking the pastor, he's the pastor.
Yeah.
He's doing the work of the Lord. He's teaching us. Yeah. Okay.
So fast forward to us doing ministry together, we got catapulted fast. So here's where more red flags. I mean, there were red flags all over. So before we even, first of all, okay, yes, God did a Godspeed thing in our situation. However, not everybody's situation was like ours. So for example, before when we started dating, that we told him that we believed the Lord was, giving us the green light to get married. He questioned it and he's like, well, I need you guys to fast and pray about this, which I get it, right? From a person who's concerned. However, it's almost like he had a role for us, right? And since he had already put us over leadership over the young adults, it had to kind of look a certain way. So it's like, if it looks like things are going too fast, that may not necessarily be beneficial. There might have been some concern there, right? So I remember he pulled us into the office. Remember when he pulled us into the office? And at one point, while we're talking with him and he's giving us his feedback on us getting together and married and everything, he makes you step out and he's talking trash about him to me. Like, I don't know this guy from Adam and da-da-da-da-da. And then he makes me step out and he starts telling you something like, me talking to all these guys or something like that.
Yeah, something like you were fast.
Yeah, like I was fast. And that was so strange to me because he didn't know that side of me at all.
Yeah.
I never dated anyone from the church while I was there. Even if I did date someone outside the church, no one knew my business. So I don't know where he got that from. I don't know if he was just bothered or what. Anyway.
And for me, at this time, I'm a couple months at the church. She knows him for years at this point. I'm only months knowing him. So like, to me, what drew me to, like, they're young. They're like I've only been to two other churches that I was in Mass and then one in Nashville, and they were all older pastors, like 60s, 70s. So I come to this one and they're like early 40s, still young. You want to think hip. They got like creative ideas. It's not so old school and things. So it's like, wow, I've never been to
yeah.
And then you start hearing like the people that they know or connected to, and you're like, man, like, so you're kind of like, well, I want to say I was like impressed in a way, like I didn't know this could be church. I'm thinking church is one way where it's, we're going to stand for 8 hours and we're going to, we're just going to be led by the Spirit. And you're just like, dang, is the Spirit still speaking right now? It's been 9 hours, you know what I mean? Like, I come from that. And then the one in Nashville is older, but they had some creative things too. But this was like the first young pastors or closer to my age.
It was exciting.
Yeah, it was exciting. I'm like, oh man, we can really.
Yeah, for sure.
And where the church had acreage. So when I got there, so let me backtrack. So when I was in Massachusetts, God gave me a vision when I was driving truck in New Hampshire one day. He said, "There's land that I have for you." That was it. There was no it was just a quick little drop in my spirit. And then fast forward all the years later, I get to Nashville. When I sell the house, he's telling me, I want you to sell because there's land. Like he brought the land back, but it had been like almost 10 years at that point. So I forgot about the land.
Yeah.
So he brought it back. So then when I get to Orlando, the church has all this land, and I'm thinking that's the land. Because I'm like, man, God, like, is this the land you're talking about? Like, there's so much you could do with this land. Because then I'm thinking, like I said, like, it's promising. You got young pastors. Like, it seems like they're listening to your ideas in a sense. So it's like, man, you could do so much with this. Like, the community could really be like helped with this land. So I'm thinking, I'm like, I'm in the right spot because God, you told me about this land. Like, I wasn't thinking about it. That wasn't my idea. That was, you dropped that in my spirit. So like when he's doing that and he's supposed to be counseling us, like that was supposed to be marriage counseling, which his wife was never there. We had one session with him.
It was supposed to be 3 sessions.
And it was one session with just him, not his wife. So, and that's when he would, but then we come to find out as, you know, once everything started happening, you start getting other people's stories, that was his MO. He would bring couples in there and he would try to divide them, and he would, you know, separate them, have the wife only and say stuff to her, and then bring the husband in. And then, but so like when he did that, I didn't know what was going on because when I first met him, when he was getting to know me, he invited me out to eat. So we go to eat and we meet at like Chili's or something. So he's at the bar, he's not drinking or anything. So I'm just like, all right, we meet at the bar, but the whole time he's on his phone. So like I'm brand new, like, and you're trying to get me to be like part of like not leadership, but at that time the gatekeepers. So you're trying to put me into something that's already established in the ministry, but you don't know me. Like I could be a predator, I could be all these different things that you don't know. But so when we're there, I'm like, oh man, like same thing, like how he's calling you. You're just like, wow, the pastor's calling me. He wants me to go out to eat. Like I've never had that before. So I'm like, all right, this is cool. We go there. He doesn't even pay no mind. He's just on his phone the whole time. Like not asking questions. Where did I come from? This and that. So it was basically like we ate almost in silence. Like I don't even remember what we talked about, but it wasn't like anything like trying to get to know who this new person is.
Right. I'm sure that was confusing.
You're just telling me you need to get connected and you need to be on the gatekeepers and you need to do this. But it's like you invited me out, but you're not saying anything. You're just on your phone. Like, so that kind of, and then a close friend of mine at the time, he was the leader of the gatekeepers. I kind of felt a type of way about that. I'm like, why are you going to invite me? But then we're not going to have any conversation. There was no point of us even meeting.
Of course.
I was hesitant to then join, but I got connected to one of the leaders, and he was talking to me, and I was like, what's up with the pastor? Like, we went out to eat and I asked him about it. He's like, oh, that's just how he is. And, you know, that, you know, as you go down the line, that's like a cover up. Once you get to know these people, you kind of defend them in that sense. Like, oh, that's just how they are. Like, don't pay them no mind. Like when reality, like, this is why we want to share. It's like, these are the things you need to look out for. Like, you don't want to just be like, oh, that's just how that person is. What if that person's evil or they're up to no good? You don't want to just brush it off because they're in leadership, whether they're the pastor or anything else. If they hold a role of responsibility, they have to be held to a certain standard, just like we're being held to a certain standard. So in that sense, we can't just let it be a cop out and be like, oh, that's just how that person is, and just because that would come back to be reminded to us through people that would come and visit the church. They would be kind of brushed the wrong way by leadership. So
yeah, and I think you're right. Sometimes we get so caught up in, oh, that's just how someone is. But it's like, again, this is the leader, this is the pastor. You know, that's no excuse to just write it off. That's just how someone is.
That's my first intimate impression of this person too. So it's like we haven't even met at that time. That was just he was like, hey, I want, go out to eat. So I'm just like, that's weird. Like, why would you? But then when he says it, so that must have happened with him. And he's just like, oh, don't worry, that's just how he is. Like, don't take it personal. Don't. So then I just kind of same thing. I just brush it off. I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna mingle and get to know. I do like the church, and I was looking at other ones at the time, but for whatever reason, I just stayed there. I didn't go and look at another one. I was just like, I'm just gonna, it was close to where I was living, so it was convenient as well. Yeah. And so I stayed. And
well, convenience helps.
Yeah, for sure.
I understand that for sure.
But so during that time when, you know, the whole counseling, which thank the Lord that, you know, we really had the Lord and we really were meant to be, because what if it was a couple that really needed counseling and they didn't get that and they still got married, like, you know? But so at that time we started butting heads, him and I was just like, I'm not feeling this guy. I don't like what he's doing. So I tell him, I was like, I don't want to be here anymore. And then, you know, he's with the zeal. He's like, well, you know, if you want to go, you're on your own or whatever.
Yeah,
I'm staying.
Because we weren't married at the time.
Right. And I understood where he was coming from, right? Because as his wife, I'm supposed to, you know, follow where he goes or whatever. So I was like, oh, I guess I just gotta deal with this. But there was a lot of things that were like frustrating for me in my spiritual growth, right? Because I'm like, okay, not only am I butting heads with this guy because, like, how dare you talk bad about me to him? But then just spiritually speaking, there were things that I wasn't seeing that was happening. Like, I'm used to being in a prophetic environment, you know, deliverance, things like that. And I wasn't seeing that happen. So I said, you know, I prayed and I was like, all right, Lord, you know, if this is where I have to be and I have to deal with this, then, you know, work on the man and, you know, start allowing these things to flow, the fivefold to flow, because it's not flowing here. So eventually it started flowing. It started coming because he's prophetic. And I was like, okay, you can't have someone who's prophetic in a church and them not able to flow how the Lord would have them to flow. So I would say that's when I'm trying not to say names. That's when everything came about with the person that moved from another state.
That doesn't help.
Maybe we can call them by the state's name.
Okay.
That's a person that moved from New Jersey.
Okay, this was a person that I knew.
Okay.
That had moved from where I was from in Massachusetts. Well, different part of the state, but I knew them because their church was the overseeing church of the church that I went to.
Okay.
So they came down, and I call it the new toy syndrome, because at that moment it's probably, we were married. He kept, so in the beginning, like, I'm not like, this is not me. I'm more of the background. I know there's a calling on my life, and I know the Spirit of God has put stuff in me. So like, I'm very passionate. So I would open prayer a lot, and I'd get, you know, almost like a hype man. So I felt like at one point they were using me as the hype man.
Yeah.
So when I knew it was prayer time, I would be like, since I was, you know, I'm hype man, but I'm a gatekeeper with my uniform on, but I might be on a camera for 15 minutes till someone shows up, or I might, hey, go run sound. So I was kind of like always all over the place.
Okay.
So when I knew it was prayer time, at a certain point, I started hiding so they couldn't use me. Because I was like, my whole thing is like, I don't want the congregation to get hyped because I'm hyped. I want you to get hyped and praise God because you truly in your heart want to praise God. It shouldn't take me because I'm passionate and I'm like, I get it. There's a time and place for that, but like, I felt like I was being used.
Yeah.
On that end, like,
because people's hearts should already come prepared. Not that I gotta hype you up to get involved with God. You should already be ready for God. Yeah, I get it.
And I was at the other churches. I was always the MC, or I was always, you know, I would preach here and there, but it was like because it's that zeal that, you know, I might be jumping on a chair and I'm screaming like I'm that passionate, like I just love God, and I was like, I don't like that. I don't, because then you get done and then people coming up to you and they're just like, man, you really, and it's like, no, but you missed it. Like, it's not about, some people like that. They like the accolade, like, man, that word you gave us. But it's like, no, that's inspired by the Spirit of God. Like, that's not me. You got like, so for me, I don't like that. So I went into the turtle shell and hide. Oh, it's about to be prayer time. I'm out on the grounds checking the doors, or I'm doing this. So I would preach here and there, but I always preached on a balanced message where I'm giving you the blessing of God, but I'm also giving you, if you deal in sin, this is what can happen. Where he was more like, not prosperity in a sense, but the more he preached was more like motivational speaking. So like I started seeing that I wasn't getting up as much because my messages they were motivational, but it's like there's a flip side to this. Like if you disobey God, there's also consequences. We can't always just live in the blessings of God. We got to understand that the wages of sin is death.
Yes.
And if you're waging your life in sin, there's a road. You know, it's the broad path that leads to sin and death. It's the narrow path that leads to righteousness and life. So it's
and people are like missing that message. It's like, now we're just coddling and saying all these great things, but we're not telling the other part.
Yeah, we're not telling them like
they need to know the other part. Out of this. What's the consequences of not following God? I'm sorry, I just had to interject.
It's okay.
So like I started to see like I wasn't, and that was fine. I didn't care. I didn't want to preach that much anyway, like because that's not what I was called to do at that moment. I knew I was just there as support. And then every once in a while, if I was able to give a message, praise God. But like I started to see like as the prophetic started to move and shift in there, and I know I am prophetic, but it's like I said, I'm giving that balanced prophetic message. I'm not just giving God's going to bless you with a house in 14 days and this and that, those types of things, which wasn't so much, but that's kind of where he was gearing towards. So then fast forward, my friend comes down to visit, and we don't talk to this day. You know, we pieced it up, but it's just, you know, like when things happen is you just kind of grow. We just kind of grew apart.
Yeah.
But it comes and he's prophetic, and it was like I called it the new toy syndrome, like Toy Story. Woody gets thrown in the thing because Buzz Lightyear's here now. Right. Which was fun because I was already pulling back, but it was like everything was this person now. Like just came into town, now everything's him because he's giving the word that he wants to hear. It was very geared to where they were trying to shift to, and so I was just like, it started creating a rift even between us. Yeah. And he allowed so many spirits were active in that place, but the spirit of competition was heavy, where it's like he's pitting people against each other, and you don't know, because we didn't find out a lot of the stuff that was going on until after we left. But like you start to notice, like I'm like, man, this is my man, but he's starting to like act a little different, and it's because this person's puffing him up. Right. The leadership's puffing him up, and you know, playing to, you know, we all have things, we all have shortcomings. Right. It's just, he wasn't playing to mine to allow me to be like, and then what God showed me was, as we got deeper in, more people were coming, and they were starting to feel almost towards the end when we were leaving, it was God showed me like a huddle, and he's the quarterback, the pastor's the quarterback, and he had his arms around like a bunch of us, because he always would talk about his core circle, and then you know, I have my core circle, and then there's people that are on the outside of the core circle. Because once a month we would have a Saturday leadership meeting. There'd be like 50 of us in the thing. And he'd just be belittling people. He'd be calling people out, like, and you're just like he would throw it like he's a slick talker. So like he says it in such a way that he adds the humor that you don't really, but like there was just certain people he was always picking on, that he was always just calling them out. And it's just like, after a while, you're just like, you know, we were talking like that. He's always talking about this person, like not in like the most favorable way. It's always like, you need to do this better. Like those are conversations you should have one-on-one, right. Not for everybody else to hear you like degrading them. And so like when he showed me that like the inner circle, he was like, if he saw you were like distracted, you know, if you're ready to do the play and you're about to get out the huddle, it was like I was already like kind of like leaving the huddle, and he couldn't get my attention, but other people he would play to the things that they wanted. Like if they wanted to preach, he would see like spiritually, this is what I was seeing, like they were about to like lose focus on the huddle, and he would see it, and since he was still close enough to them, he'd let them preach. So then they would kind of be settled for a moment. Like he would like, and I don't want to just say he, but that's that spirit, those are the influences of darkness that operate in white people, Asian people, black people, like all, it's a human thing. It's not, you know, that's what also they want to do is divide. This is a black church, this is a white church, this is a Hispanic church. Look, we're all the body of Christ. Right. But that's a trick of the enemy as well, that like we can't really unite because we're a black church and you're a white church and we don't mix and we don't. But that's a spirit. That's a spirit behind that. And that was the same thing operating. So yeah, it's him in a way because he does have character flaws like we all do. But most of us are really trying to seek God to fix those things. Right. And you can see it when it's genuine. And then you could just see the ones that are just like, that's just who they are. That's the cover up. Like, that's just who they are. And he was doing that. And that's how he would gain people to come back into the circle. Was like, oh, I see them drifting a little bit. Oh, I know what they like. I know what they're looking for. I know what they're yearning for. They want to be seen, or they want to be, they haven't prayed in 3 months. I'm going to let them. And then you would see them up more for a little bit. And then he would let them die back down again. Cause he's like, I fed you a little bit. Like I gave you a piece of steak, but I'm not giving you the whole steak. I'm going to, cause like that steak is there if you want it, but at this moment, I'm only going to give you a little piece. So like that was happening a lot where it's just like, he knew who was fading out, who was this, and the same thing. Like when prominent people left, it was never, only a couple people got not even a blessing, but he would talk about them. And then afterwards in those Saturday meetings, he'd be like he wouldn't call them out by name, but he was like, the people that leave, they're just not for us. They're not.
We'll pause on that because that's a whole story right there. So. Oh my gosh. So, as he's saying that, right, to go a little bit more into the prophetic stuff. So, again, you're desiring to grow, right? You're desiring to know what your gifts are in the Lord, all that stuff. So, like for me, I'm like, okay, I know I've always had discernment. I'm a dreamer. I may not be a prophet, but I'm prophetic. I know I hear from the Lord. Mm-hmm. So it's twofold, the prophetic stuff on what the manipulation that was happening. So he would have a meeting. Let's say, if you think you're a prophet, come to this meeting, basically, right? So it's by way of, if you think you are, but then also by way of them, seeing like, okay, who's flowing in this when they pray and this, that, and the other. So it's almost like if he took it upon himself to name who the prophets were. But then all of a sudden, in all these years, you never heard him say that his wife is the prophetess of the house. But now all of a sudden, since he has named the prophets, they're the prophets. Let's say there was 7, 9 of them, whatever. But then now it's his wife. These are the prophets, but his wife is the prophetess of the house. And you're just like, okay. So we would have on the Saturdays that we would have the meetings, aside from him, bashing people. So one thing about that is that, you sit back and you notice and you observe things. And I would feel grieved that there were people who were older than him, who were elders to him, he would disrespect in the meetings. And you're just like, and what happens is your ears get conditioned to just being normal. And you're just like, well, that's just how he is. That's how he talks to them, But for us, what he would do for us is he always hyped us up.
Keep that. But he would say, like, once he disrespects or he says something, he'd be like, we're all grown here. So they'll use stuff like that. Like, we're all grown here. We shouldn't get offended by if I'm talking to you a certain way. Yeah, so that's part of the conditioning. So those are this is all to like, if you're in this situation where like, whether it's at work or it's at a church or any time where leadership is abusing their power, these are certain things that you might be, that you realize like, oh, dang, this person does the same thing. Or, man, I have been in a situation like that. So it's like, I'm going to belittle you, but then I'm going to be like, well, we're all grown here. So like, we should be able to talk to each other and not get offended. So it's like, it kind of like eases it a little bit. And it's just like, and then you're kind of like, yeah, true. So I also want to give like, this is us seeing all this stuff once we got out. Like we were blinded to it. And what God says, because we were so close. And towards the end, he said, no, you need to step back. Because sometimes when you're so close to something, the picture can be blurry. Like if I put my face right to the camera, you're not going to get a good picture of who I am. But if I back up, my face is going to be a better resolution. You're going to get to see like, okay, like I just saw his forehead. Now I can see his nose, I can see his mouth, his ears, and I think that's what we were getting so close that like the things that were taking place, you kind of just brush it to the side because you're just so close. You're just in ministry mode. Like I got to do this, I got to do that, I got to, I'm just running and the carrot's just dangling, like the horse with the carrot is just dangling, and you got the blinders on the side, and it's like, guys, it's like, no, slow down. Like, you
almost
gotta
like he's
slow
grooming,
down.
grooming you. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's exactly,
But he comes from his peers are all the same. Like as it just goes bigger. Like all his pastor friends, they do the same. Like their churches have it goes deep. It goes deep.
And it's crazy because one of his preachings was titled, "Oh, the webs we weave." This is such a web that's weaved. This is just one church, and if you start connecting the dots, it's wild.
Wow.
But so he started, picking out the prophets and things like that. So I'll give you a perfect example, right? One thing about us, and I think that's what people love about us, is that we're open book, we're transparent. Whether I'm right, whether I'm wrong, whatever. So as I'm trying to get to know who I am in the Lord and figure out how the Lord wants to use me, I'm like, okay, I know I'm prophetic. I don't necessarily need you to identify me as a prophet, but I'm trying to figure things out, because then they basically introduce like, okay, if you think you're prophetic or you think you're a prophet, so that you can kind of try to unravel the gifting, right? And it's like, I would try, but it was just like shut off. I would try and it was shut off. And then I just said, you know what, whatever. As I'm developing in the Lord, and I know for a fact that I'm hearing from him, I'm just like, hey, I know that I hear from the Lord. At the end of the day, I don't need a man to validate it. And I also don't need a title for it. But I did see how he was causing the division. And it was just like these things that you're like, because there was one person in particular that you were just like, there's no way. I'm sorry, Lord. There's no way that man is a prophet. But the pastor is saying he is. So you start questioning things, right? So I've always been a dreamer. So here's what the Lord will do. I've noticed in these situations is that he will start giving dreams to people. So I believe that he started noticing that more and more people were bringing dreams to him and to his wife, some good, some not good. So how convenient was it to create a dream team, right? That can help you interpret dreams and all this and that. Mind you, I'm a dreamer, but that doesn't mean that I can necessarily interpret a dream, right? That takes practice. That takes, seeking the Holy Spirit, seeing what the Lord is saying, right? So when we put the pieces together, we could see how he created these dream teams, and he had certain leaders over each team to filter through the dreams that were coming forth. Because in the mix of those dreams were dreams about him, were dreams about his wife. And those would not be presented to the team to interpret, but those would go directly to him or to his wife. So of course, they're not going to share that with anybody if it's something negative about them, right? So I remember we were in one of the meetings, and this was more like towards the end of things. But I remember we were in one of the meetings, and it was almost like if our ears were on purpose getting conditioned to the manipulation. And I'm moving forward, but I'll keep going back on certain things. But he basically said, which was so crazy to me, he said, if anyone ever talks about me and my wife, like basically don't let them, but and to defend them. But in a conversation I had with him one-on-one, where I in fact had been defending him, but I believe he didn't like the way I was defending him, he was like, I don't need you to defend me. So I remember when he brought that up in the meeting, and I'm like, well, which one is it? You want us to defend you, or you don't want us to defend you?
Wow, my goodness. This is, I'm listening to you, and I'm hearing things that, things that go on in the world that I've experienced. and even in church as well. But oh my goodness, look, y'all, we got to come back to this. We're coming back to this next week. We're going to pick up right here. That's just where we're going to land right here today on this journey. If this episode found you in the middle of building, dreaming, or trying to figure out your next move, remember, you are not behind. You are just being refined. Joshua and Stephanie Roussel reminded us today that your story doesn't just matter. It was designed to be a weapon, and that the power and authority to be set free and is placed right on the inside of you. Well, I hope I said it right. Oh my goodness. I'm just like, my goodness. I mean, you know, when you hear this, okay, I'm sorry. Okay, we're going to come back. I'm not going to say it. This has been PlanetRoq. We don't just talk, y'all. We tell the truth. If the truth, did I say truth? If today spoke to you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with somebody who needs to hear that their voice can carry the weight that leads others to be set free. Make sure you like, subscribe, and tap that notification bell on my YouTube channel, Raquel Herring, so you never miss an episode. Again, you can catch the PlanetRoq podcast every Thursday on envision-radio.com and on YouTube, and weeknights at 7:30 p.m. on POV Comcast Xfinity Channel 1623 on Afro TV. And as always, if you're having a hard day, don't you go handing it out like a party favor, okay? Pause, reflect, reset. The world's got enough noise. I mean, y'all can hear that right now, right? Be the reason someone breathes easier today. Thank you for watching PlanetRoq. We'll be back next week with this story. You do not want to miss it.
What an awesome show full of insight and inspiration. Thank you to our guests and listeners. Look forward to hearing us next week on envision-radio.com at 12 noon, right here on PlanetRoq.